Should you buy the new Bitcoin ETF? No, and here's why. The Securities and Exchange Commission of the United States have approved a spot Bitcoin exchange traded fund. This allows financial institutions to hold Bitcoin in a digital vault, and they can then issue shares in the ETF against this asset. And these ETFs will be designed to mirror the price of Bitcoin. So what are the pros and cons of this ETF? And should you be adding it to your portfolio? So what's the pros of buying this ETF? For starters, it's a regulated and accessible way for investors to purchase Bitcoin. And these regulated ETFs can be included in pension funds or can be included in investment strategies that utilize tax breaks. This means that Bitcoin prices may rise as mainstream investors enter the market. And if we look at Google Trends, which tracks search history, we see that Bitcoin ETFs as a search term has ticked upwards quite considerably. Therefore, by holding these ETFs or by holding the underlying asset, you may be in a position to benefit from this increased demand. The final pro is increased exposure in your portfolio. Now, this isn't the same as diversification. When you diversify, what you're trying to do is balance your portfolio to provide consistent returns. What that means is if one asset type goes down, the other asset type should go up. Now, I don't see Bitcoin as a particularly good hedge of anything, to be honest. Instead, this just brings more risk into your portfolio, which could be something that you want and could be favorable for you. On the con side, there is of course the increased digital risk of having all this Bitcoin stored in one place. What if the financial institution which is managing that Bitcoin gets hacked? And I mean, their firewalls and their cybersecurity is going to experience a lot of pressure given how much Bitcoin they're going to be holding in that digital wallet. So there is a digital risk that investors need to be aware of. We also have to talk about the underlying asset. Bitcoin is speculative. There's no way of getting around that. Bitcoin has no inherent value and it is inherently price volatile. You can disagree with me if you want in the comment section, but that's what I think. People compare it to gold, but it's not the same as gold. Gold has uses. It can be used in scientific instruments. There's a limited supply of gold. That's not comparable to a means of exchange like Bitcoin. So what you're purchasing with this ETF is a speculative asset. The other things to consider is Bitcoin is unethical and it's also environmentally damaging. By purchasing Bitcoin, even indirectly, you are to some extent contributing to illegal activity and to other forms of illegal actions. For example, you might be buying a Bitcoin off of someone who is using that coin to, say, money launder. And there's no way you can check that. There's no guarantee that when you indirectly buy that Bitcoin, that Bitcoin isn't effectively paying a criminal their profits. Bitcoin's also massively environmentally damaging. To create and to hold Bitcoin takes an enormous amount of computing power. And that computing power requires energy. And that obviously has a carbon footprint. And as a final con, there is the old adage of the emperor not wearing any clothes. This is a story of an emperor who paid a tailor to make him a new and amazing suit, and everyone pretended like it was new and amazing. That was until a child came along and said, actually, Emperor, you're not wearing anything at all. And that could happen here with Bitcoin. There is such a counterculture around Bitcoin which rejects mainstream financial institutions. And now we see these mainstream financial institutions getting involved in Bitcoin and actively trying to regulate Bitcoin. The whole point of Bitcoin was that there wasn't regulation and there wasn't government oversight. But now increasingly that's starting to creep in. So when these funds start to hit the market, some of the biggest holders of Bitcoin will be mainstream financial institutions like BlackRock. And I find that very hard to reconcile with the idea that Bitcoin is kind of this non-attached, independent form of monetary exchange. It doesn't seem to go together for me. And that idea was one of the big initial selling points of cryptocurrencies. So should you buy these new Bitcoin ETFs? I don't know, depends on you. I'm not a financial advisor, I can't give you that type of advice. But will I be buying these ETFs? Probably not. Interest rates are very high at the moment, which means traditional and very safe assets are doing fairly well. Take, for example, my big financial ambition, which is to own a house. So we see inflation in the economy, but there's barely any inflation in the housing market. So prices are stagnating there. So if I can save my money in a 5 or 6% savings account, with no risk, then every year my savings are making 5% extra while the house prices stay the same. Now that for me personally seems like a much more sensible approach to investing. But who knows, maybe I'll have some cash laying around and I'll just YOLO that into one of these funds. But that's not investing, that's like going to a casino. And I personally don't like casinos. So let me know in the comments below, will you be buying the new Bitcoin ETF? And follow the channel for more videos like this. Until the next time, bye bye.